Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about what are the function of this temporomandibular joint, or what are the mandibular motions which are occurring in temporomandibular joint, and what are the muscles which are acting on this temporomandibular joint. The temporomandibular joint is one of the most frequently used joint in the body, because in our daily activity or in our daily life, the most used joint in our human body is temporomandibular joint. We used it for talking, chewing, swallowing, and most of the functions of facial expression, all the things are mainly done by the temporomandibular joint. So when you're chewing some food, or when you're talking, when you're smiling, when you're doing whatever the daily activities, it has some impact on this temporomandibular joint. The joint is well designed for this intensive use. The cartilage covering of articular surfaces is designed to tolerate repeated high level stress. In addition to a joint structure that support a high level usage, the musculature is designed to provide both power and intricate control. Speech requires fine control of jaw, and ability to chew requires a great strength. So basically, because of this temporomandibular joint and the surrounding musculature, we are able we are able to carry out our daily functions or our daily sustainable needs, mainly the chewing of food, because some kind of food needs a high amount of strength. So that amount of strength is exerted by the surrounding muscles. So the strongest masseter muscle or the temporal muscles are the main attachment to the temporomandibular joint, or which carry out the temporomandibular function. So first we are going to looking about what are the motions which are happening in the mandible in relation with this temporal bone. Basically, we have we open our mouth, close our mouth, jetting the chin forward, sliding the teeth backward, sliding teeth either to side. So each of these are, when we are opening the mouth, we are depressing our mandible. When we are closing, we are elevating our mandible. When we are keeping our chin forward or the teeth forward, we are making mandibular protrusion. If you are sliding the teeth backward, we are making mandibular retrusion. If you are sliding this teeth to either side, that's called mandibular lateral deviation. These motions are created by various combinations of rotations and gliding in upper and lower joints. So as we said earlier, as we seen in earlier classes, the temporomandibular joint has two joint compartments, upper joint compartment and the lower joint compartment. So all these movements are happening in combination of rotation and gliding in both upper and lower joints. So first one is mandibular elevation and depression. The motions in each temporomandibular joint follows a similar pattern, because both the temporomandibular joint, the movements happening are in a similar manner. There are two distinct and somewhat conflicting descriptions of movement of mouth opening. So there are two theories which are actually trying to define how the mouth opening is happening, or how the elevation and depressions are happening. So the first model or first theory describes that the two there are two movements which are happening in temporomandibular joint when we are trying to open our mouth, that is rotation and glide, and both these are happening in a sequential glide. So this is the first theory. So in this first theory, it suggests that whenever we are trying to open our mouth, first there will be a rotation, then it is followed by a translatory movement. So it actually, the first theory tells that it's a the movements which are happening in the temporomandibular joints are in a sequential pattern. That means one movement will happen at first and it will be followed by the second movement. The second model, or the second theory, describes that the components of rotation and gliding are present but occurring concomitantly rather than sequentially. So the second theory tells that both the movements, that means the gliding and sliding, are happening in temporomandibular joint, but these movements are not happening in a sequential manner, but these movements are happening concomitant with each other. That means both the movements are happening at the same time when we are trying to open the mouth. So this is the second theory it tells. So whenever we try to open our mouth, there will be a rotation which is associated with the translation. So these are the two theories, these are the two conflicting theories which describes about how the elevation and depressions of mandible is happening. The normal mouth opening is considered to be 40 to 50 millimeter. So 40 to 50 millimeter of length we are able to open our mouth. Between 11 millimeter, 22 and 25 11 to 23 and 25 to 11 25 to 12 is gained from rotation of condyle in the disc. That means in the beginning there will be a translation from 11 to 23 and 25 to 12. That means the return of movements or the elevation of mandible from 25 millimeter 25 millimeter to 12 millimeter is mainly happening by the rotations of condyle, and other movements, that means from 1 to 11 and 25 to about 50 are happening mainly because of this translatory movements. So that means from 11 to 23 when we are opening our mouth, and from 25 to 12 when we are closing the mouth, are mainly happening because of this rotation of condyles. And the movements which are happening before or till 11 millimeter and after 25 millimeter are mainly happening due to this rotatory or the translatory movements. And whereas the remainder is from translation of disc and condyle along with the articular eminence. To estimate to estimate a function, use of proximal interphalangeal joints to assess opening. So we can use our proximal interphalangeals to know whether the joint is in a functional position or whether joint is functionally stable. If two PAP joints can be placed between upper and lower central front incisors, the amount of opening is functional. Although fit of 3 PAP joints is considered to be normal. So that's how we can actually, if we are not in a situation to assess the exact millimeter of length for a person who is able to open the mouth, we can actually use our proximal interphalangeal joints to assess the function. So we can keep these two fingers in between our teeth, upper and lower teeth, and we can assess whether the joint is in a functional position or not. And next is mandibular elevation or the mouth closing is the exact reverse of the depression. So when we are depressing the mandible, there are a set of movements are happening. The exact opposite of those movements are happening when we are elevating the mouth. It consists of translation of disc condyle unit posteriorly and superiorly, and of posterior rotation of condyle on the disc. So these are the movements which are happening when we are elevating our mandible. So there will be a posteriorly the disc condyle, there will be a posterior and superior translation of disc condyle and a posterior rotation of condyle on the disc. Control of disc during mandibular elevation and depression. So what are the structures which is actually controlling the disc during mandibular elevation and depression? The articular disc is controlled both actively and passively during mouth opening and closing. So there are some structures which is actively, that means with the contraction of those structures we are able to carry out the stability, or we are able to control the disc, or there are some passive structures which are passively acting or passively elongating to control the disc. The passive control is exerted by the capsular tendon, capsular ligamentous attachments of the disc to condyle. So as we said earlier, there are so many attachments to the disc. So the ligamentous or the capsular ligamentous attached from the disc to the condyles are the passive, are the one which is passively controlling this disc. Active control of disc may be exerted through the disc attachment anteriorly to the superior portion of lateral pterygoid muscle. So that's the one which is actively controlling the disc. That means it is actually contracting to control this particular disc. So The superior portion of lateral pterygoid muscle is the one which is actively controlling this disc. Mouth opening. During mouth opening, the medial and lateral attachments of disc to the condyle limit the motion between disc and condyle of rotation. So because of these two, because of this medial and lateral attachment to the disc and which is actually connecting to the condyle, during mouth opening there will be a limitation of translation of this disc. The translation of condyle, the second one is translation of, during translation of condyle, the biconcave shape or disc causes it to follow the condyle without any additional passive or active assistance. The inferior retrodiscal lamina limits the forward exertion of disc. The superior portion of lateral pterygoid muscle appear to be positioned to assist with the anterior translation of disc but does not show activity during mouth opening. So as we seen in earlier, the disc got a two laminar attachment in the posterior surface. So because of this two lamina or the attachment of this posterior retrodiscal lamina, it limits the posterior translation. Or because of this elasticity of this retrodiscal lamina, we are able to position or to control the disc in posterior surface. And when we are trying to close our mouth, this lamina of this, the posterior lamina of disc, so we have seen that the disc got two posterior lamina, superior and inferior, and the superior lamina got an extra property of elasticity. So because of this particular elasticity, the retrodiscal part or the superior retrodiscal part are actually able to recoil its position back to normal. So that's what actually happening during closing. So whenever we try to close our mouth, because of this superior retrodiscal elasticity, the disc is actually controlled in position. The activity of superior lateral pterygoid allows the disc condyle complex to translate upward and posteriorly during mouth closing and then maintains the disc in forward position until the condyle has completed its posterior rotation on the disc or until the disc has rotated anteriorly on condyle. So during when we are closing our mouth, until we achieve this normal position of temporomandibular joint, this lateral pterygoid muscle, the superior lateral pterygoid muscle, is the one which is actually pulling this disc upward and backward to maintain this particular position of the disc. And next is mandibular protrusion and retraction. What is a mandibular protrusion and retraction? Basically, we are moving our teeth forward and backward. The motion occurs when all points of mandible moves forward at the same point. That means whenever we try to keep our lower teeth in front of upper teeth. So that's what happening during protrusion. The condyle and disc together translate anteriorly and inferiorly along with the articular eminence. So in the depression and elevation, we said that there will be a rotatory and a translatory force or a translatory movement. But in during protrusion and extrusion, there is only one movement, that is a translation of disc and the articular eminence. So all these structures in the temporomandibular joints or the mandibular portion of temporomandibular joint are translating together to form this protrusion, and there is no rotations are happening in the temporomandibular joint during protrusion. And during protrusion, the teeth are separated from upper to lower. During protrusion, the posterior attachment of disc, that means bilamellar retrodiscal tissue, stretches about 6 to 9 millimeter to allow this motion. So this attachment of disc, that means the retrodiscal lamina, both the superior and inferior lamina, are actually stretching to 6 to 9 millimeter to allow this particular movement. And the teeth is separated, and the protrusion should be adequate to allow upper and lower teeth to touch edge to edge. So that's what actually happening during protrusion. And this is what the protrusion, we are actually keeping our lower teeth in front of, we are moving the lower teeth in front of upper teeth. So if you try for maximum protrusion, this lower teeth can be seen in front of upper teeth. And next one is mandibular lateral deviation. That means we are taking our mandible to both the side, right and left, both the right and left side. In lateral deviation of the mandible to one side, one condyle spins around vertical axis and other condyle translates. For example, deviation to right would involve the right condyle spinning and left condyle translating or gliding forward. So that's what happening. So this is what is happening in, this is the right side and this is the left side. So in this, what is happening? The right side condyle is actually spinning, or it is giving a rotation around vertical axis. At the same time, the opposite condyle is actually either moving anterior translation or it is going for anterior gliding. So that's what is happening during lateral deviation. The result is movement of chin to right side, and normally about a lateral exertion of joint is basically about 8 millimeter. Muscular control of next, what are the muscles which is controlling this temporomandibular joint? The primary muscle responsible for mandibular depression is the digastric muscle. So this is the digastric muscle, and it is attaching from this master process to the hyoid bone and to the anterior portion of mandible. So this is the primary muscle which is initiating this mandibular movement. The posterior portion of digastric muscles arises from the mastoid notch, whereas the anterior portion arises from inferior mandible. The tendon that joins anterior and posterior portions is connected by fibrous loop to the hyoid bone. So this is the posterior portion and this is the anterior portion. So both the portions are actually getting attached with this hyoid bone. So this digastric muscle is the one which is primarily acting on mandibular motions. And mandibular elevation is accomplished by several muscles. So the mandibular elevation, for the mandibular elevation, there are a group of muscles, mainly because this mandibular depression is happening by the muscular and also by this action of gravities. And to prevent the gravity and to keep the mouth closed, there are several group of muscles which are actually acting to elevate the mandible or to keep the mouth in a closed position. First one is the temporalis muscle, which attaches inside the coronoid process, and this is the temporalis muscle which is originating from the temporal fossa and which is inserting to the coronoid fossa. Next one is the masseter muscle, is attached to the outer surface of the angle and the ramus of mandible. So this is the masseter muscle. So masseter is one of the primary muscles which is actually helping to chewing the food. And next one is medial and lateral pterygoid muscles. Medial pterygoid muscle is attached to inner surface of the angle of ramus of the mandible, and the lateral pterygoid is active during mouth closing in what is assumed to be eccentric control of the disc. And this is the two medial and lateral pterygoid muscles. So this medial pterygoid muscle which is attached inside, and the lateral pterygoid muscle which is attached much more superiorly, and it has some attachments to the disc. So these are the basic muscles which are acting on this temporomandibular joint. The other simple mandibular motions of protrusion, retrusion, and lateral deviation are produced by some muscles that elevate and depress the mandible, but in a different sequence. So, as we said, these are the basic muscles which are acting on temporomandibular joint, but it is actually acting during elevation of temporomandibular joint. All other movements, that means the lateral deviation and elevation and protrusion and retraction, are happening by some sequence of these muscles. The mandibular protrusion is produced by bilateral action of masseter, medial pterygoid, and lateral pterygoid muscles. And a retrusion is produced to the bilateral action of posterior fibers of temporalis muscle with the assistance of anterior posterior digastric muscle. A lateral deviation of mandible is caused by unilateral action of a selected set of this muscle. The medial and lateral pterygoid muscles each deviate the mandible to opposite side. The temporalis muscle can deviate the mandible to same side. The temporalis and lateral pterygoid muscles on the left appear to create opposite motions of the mandible. Concomitant contractions of right lateral pterygoid and right temporalis muscle function as a force couple. Together, they effectively spin the condyle to create deviation of mandible to left. So these are the combinations of muscles which are producing all the movements in the temporomandibular joint.